So, Dr. Gelassi, dear Albert, dear SAP colleagues, Kathy, Alex, Sunil, Adi, dear teachers, dear Africa Code Week ambassadors, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the launch of the 2022 edition of Africa Code Week. After several years of developing partnerships, strengthening our relations with the various spheres of the educational systems, and positively impacting millions of lives, we are proud to host yet another edition of Coding and Learning Opportunities. Africa's immense pool of talents is a vital resource for the development of the continent. And if education is the core of the structure, when it comes to moving forward, the energy actually comes from the vibrant young minds that imagine, design, and build the world. Today marks the annual World Teachers' Day, where we reflect on the mission of people who dedicate their lives to the growth of our children, communities, nations, and world. When conceiving Africa Code Week, we never imagined that its impact would be as large as it is now. More than 10 million children engaged in coding workshops since 2015, and hundreds of thousands of teachers were mobilized in the process. We managed to work around a global pandemic and kept learning opportunities available. And with the help of hundreds of SAP volunteers, we kept on training and mentoring virtually so that innovation still had space to grow. In 2021 alone, close to 2 million children were able to access coding workshops, of which 47% were girls, as our vision remains the same, leaving no child behind. As we officially launch the 2022 edition of what is now the largest digital literacy initiative in Africa, I would like to take a moment to thank our esteemed partners, UNESCO with Dr. Gelassi, the Association for the Development of Education in Africa with Honorable Albert, the Camden Education Trust with Bernard, and all the organizations that trust us with achievements of our common goals. Africa Code Week is a story of many chapters, and the next one is just as exciting as the previous. As we embark on a journey to make coding even more widely accessible on the continent, I would like to thank the teams on the field who embody our message and carry it to the most remote parts of Africa. Dear Africa Code Week ambassadors, this is also your celebration as you give life to our vision with your creativity and very sparkling ideas. And last but not least, to our teachers, to those we remember year after year who leave immemorable footprints in the heart, the mind, and the spirit of millions of children. We would like to thank you. Thank you for your commitment and for passing on your knowledge for the benefit of entire nations. With no further ado, I would like to give the floor to our esteemed guest, the UNESCO Assistant Directeur Général for Communication and Information, Dr. Tafik Gelassi. Je vous en prie.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Gillison. Honorable Albert Nsengi Yumva, Miss Alessandra van der Ploeg, Miss Kathy Smith, Mr. Bernard Kirk, Mr. Sunil Genes, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends. I'm very pleased to be with you this afternoon for the official launch of Africa Code Week 2022. As Africa is the priority region for UNESCO, we are strongly committed to supporting the 154 African member states in building peace and sustainable development. With our 16 offices on the ground and 2 institutes across Africa, UNESCO is proud to have programs running on the ground that have changed the lives of so numerous people in the continent. UNESCO believes that empowering the younger generations and embracing the digital transformation cannot be achieved without understanding fundamental information literacy skills. It is therefore meaningful for us to partner with the Africa Code Week and to accompany Africa's youth in the equitable access to information and to education. A couple of weeks ago, I was in New York City speaking at the Transforming Education Summit, which, as you know, was convened by the UN Secretary General. On this occasion, UNESCO highlighted some key initiatives, such as expanding public digital learning, notably through open educational resources, as well as media and information literacy. Coding, computational thinking, and problem solving are all part of the key to empower the youth so they can effectively participate in the knowledge-based society. UNESCO initiatives such as the Youth Mobile Project, which has been implemented in many parts of Africa, support digital transformation by strengthening participants' skills and capacities, and therefore enabling them to be fully fit for the new digital era. Ladies and gentlemen, along with Africa, gender equality is the other key priority of UNESCO. We are thrilled to see the Women Empowerment Program being part of the Africa Code Week. At UNESCO, we have been working to bridge the digital gender gap through targeted actions. These actions include building the capacities of female ICT teachers, attracting the participation of young women and girls to coding workshops, and supporting female coders' development. The recent UNESCO report on the effects of artificial intelligence on the working lives of women examines what we currently know about the impact of this emerging technology on work opportunities for women. The gender gap is present in all phases of someone's career, from education to retirement. We must change that by bringing in and supporting women in STEM education, reskilling and upskilling them, especially working in AI and technology, and also through conducting additional research in this field. Closing the digital gender divide will increase opportunities for women throughout their working lives. Digital skills can make a big difference in women's prospects. We must also ensure the development and implementation of public policies for digital innovation and entrepreneurship, especially those focusing on the inclusion of youth and the inclusion of women as well. Social innovation hubs in Africa, many of which are also involved in Africa Code Week. These hubs are critical spaces for engaging and connecting communities, the youth, tech entrepreneurs, and innovators. These hubs play an important role in bringing forth innovations in the form of new companies, new products and services, and even new professions and functions that can further drive the continent's digital development. UNESCO appreciates very much the cooperation with SAP and all of our partners who have been supporting the Africa Code Week for so many years. This event of today is the largest coding event in Africa, as it was mentioned earlier, having reached 10 million students in more than 40 countries. 47% of these students are girls. Africa Code Week has also supported thousands of teachers and educators to acquire the necessary digital skills to raise up to this challenge. The week demonstrates the power of partnerships to increase well-being and advance development that leaves no one behind. The African Code Week is a true embodiment of SDG Goal 17, which is about partnership for sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, this year's launch of Africa Code Week coincides with the World Teachers' Day. Every year on October 5th, UNESCO celebrates the crucial role of teachers worldwide. The theme of this year is the transformation of education begins with teachers. I congratulate all the teachers in Africa who continue to transform the students' potential by providing them with the skills, competencies, and tools they need to thrive. Let me, in closing, join you to say we all aim for a positive transformation, and I'm very pleased again to be with you to celebrate the launch of Africa Code Week 2022 and also the World Teachers' Day. Thank you very much for your attention.
Merci infiniment, Dr. Gelassi, for your opening remarks and for UNESCO ongoing support and high focus in digital literacy and gender equality during this very important day for us. Merci. Dear Kathy, many thanks as well for joining us today. As the Managing Director of SAP Africa and a fierce supporter of Africa Code Week, I would like to ask you what thoughts you would like to share with us today during this important World Teachers' Day. And the launch of this 2022 Africa Code Week edition. And I have also a third question is what would be your, as the business leaders, what would be your perspectives on the impact of public-private partnership on the African business market? And you can take, whatever and answer whatever questions you want.
Bravo. Thank you so much, Claire and Alexandra. Thank you for having me at this incredibly important event, the launch of Africa Code Week 2022. I'd like to start by saying on behalf of the entire Africa leadership team, our absolute sincere thanks to all our partners and to the SAP team who have made this incredibly important program possible and for making it happen year after year for the last several years. We are deeply grateful for the impact that this has created on our continent. In fact, when we think about it from our perspective as a technology company, we know that the world and people are hugely impacted by the fact that digital transformation is a reality. And Africa Code Week is one of the foundational blocks in helping many people, particularly those that don't have access to education in the way that we would typically see it, at least get a foot into that building block to get into the digital transformation world. But we were thinking, Claire, about what does Africa Code Week mean to us? And yes, coding is a fundamentally important building block. I am particularly passionate about it because I'm an application developer and I understand the power of being able to code. It helps individuals in all aspects of their personal and professional development. But we were debating that there's something more fundamental that we believe Africa Code Week provides for us, particularly on the continent. And one of my colleagues shared with me an extract from a poem by Emily Dixon. And I'd like to share it with everybody, just to give the context of what it means to us and the impact it has beyond having a technical skill. And the poem or the extract goes this way. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And this is what we truly believe ACW brings to the youth on our continent, a sense of hope that there is something beyond their circumstances, beyond what they imagined was possible, that gives them that opportunity to strive to do more and to be better, so that we as an African nation can take our rightful place in the global economy, in global society, in really making our contribution as an equal partner in this world that we're living. So that was the first powerful realization that we came to in our reflection around Africa Code Week and its impact it had on us. And then perhaps as a way of answering one of your questions, talking about public-private partnerships, we all know the wonderful African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And our transformation as an African continent, our very diverse countries and cultures, we need not only with each other to be able to partner, to collaborate, but we need to do it with private sector, with governments, with all our partners. If I just think about how amazing this program has been with our partners, UNESCO, Siafunda, government stakeholders, this has made ACW a repeatable program that is built on sustainability. And when we think about our future as nations, we always have to bear in mind sustainability. So for us, this partnership, this collaboration has been an incredibly powerful and important example of how we can really transform Africa, how we can start to address issues like unemployment, alleviating poverty by working together to do good. So we are incredibly grateful to every single organization and individual who has helped us get to this point. And we wish everybody a magnificent Africa Code Week 2022. So thank you so much, Claire, for having me.
Thank you so much to you, Kathy, for sharing your insight of the hope that Africa Code Week brings to the continent, and also the power of public-private partnerships in the process and in general. Merci infiniment, Kathy.
Merci.
So, Alex, so Alexandra van der Ploeg is the Global CSR Vice President and a huge sponsor of Africa Code Week. Alex, Kathy was mentioning unemployment as well. That is absolutely an enormous, I don't find my words here, but that is one of the major issues worldwide, but also on the African continent. So I wanted to ask you two questions. So the first one would be your perspective as well on Africa Code Week and the future of Africa Code Week, because we're going through a transformation as well. And also, I wanted to know if you could share with us one of the newest programs that would tackle unemployment and that you have recently created and announced at UNIA.
Thank you so much, Claire. It is so wonderful to be with everybody again at Africa Code Week Launch 2022. Dr. Jelassi, Honorable Albert, it's wonderful to see you, and thank you so much for your support, dear colleagues and members of the audience. Let me just share a few reflections on these topics, which are so complex and interconnected and interlinked, right? But I think one of the issues that we keep going on about is that our world is constantly evolving. And unfortunately, what happens a little bit is when you follow the discourse that's happening in the world, there's not always sufficient realization that really education is the key to unlocking change and to meeting the challenges that we're facing head on. Without education, we will not be able to tackle the issues we face with climate change. Without education, we will not be managing a green transition or a transformation towards a digital world that Kathy was talking about. Education really is the foundation of it all, and it creates this ripple effect that solves many social and environmental issues beyond purely economic growth. Because of that, from an SAP point of view, we are making sure that we're actually doubling down on our commitment to power equitable access to economic opportunity, education and employment, as well as the green economy. Reflecting a little bit again also on sort of the effects of the COVID-19 crisis. Unfortunately, it has shown us that when you keep children away from the classroom, there is not just an inevitable disruption in education, but it has significant long-term implications. So if we just look at some of these figures, there was a great UNESCO report called the UNESCO Education Recovery Report that demonstrated that nearly 153 million children missed more than half of their in-person schooling over the past 2 years, with more than 62 million of them having missed at least 3/4 of in-person schooling. The economic implications of that are significant. Some have suggested that the economic cost of the school closures means that today's cohort of learners could face a $10 trillion loss in future earnings over the next generation. So there's a direct correlation. And as the world now rebuilds education and refocuses hopefully a bit more of the efforts on education, we at SAP want to make sure that anyone who graduates has the chance to gain or create decent and sustainable employment. Because there's no point in learning and skilling if there's not concrete job opportunities or entrepreneurial endeavors that are linked to it. Our youth and our educators are left, unfortunately, with a gigantic task when it comes to building a solid, skilled workforce. And the lack of infrastructure and skills had a major impact on communities. And it demonstrates yet again how essential it is to make digital literacy a widely acquired skill worldwide, but most importantly also in Africa. With Africa Code Week, we are ready to go this one step further with regards to our impact. The next phase of our initiative is to reach out widely to all the decision makers in the education field, to the public institutions responsible for the future of our youth. We have proven over the years that there is not only a need, but a genuine interest in coding and digital skills at all levels of development. So this means that later this month, the Africa Code Week team will host 10 education leaders as ministry representatives in Rabat, Morocco, to initiate this transformation and transition to the next phase of the initiative, which is to work collaboratively with the ministries and ease the introduction of coding into the national school curricula. At this event, we will also kickstart the process of passing on the baton to education stakeholders to sustain the awareness initiative Africa Code Week that we started in 2015. But as we continue to advocate for a world where there is employment, opportunity, and growth for everyone, we've also announced just recently, as you mentioned, Claire, a new multi-year, multi-million partnership with an organization called Generation Unlimited that UNESCO is also part of. And in the first year, SAP and Generation Unlimited will pilot an innovative program that supports learning to earning pathways in the digital and green economy for young people in need, giving them the hard and soft skills they need to be successful in a changing global economy. To do that, we're going to be leveraging a platform which is called YOMA, the so-called Youth Agency Marketplace, which is a Generation Unlimited solution. Then the program will pilot in Nigeria, South Africa, and the Philippines. And we hope to reach more than 500,000 young people in year one. This so-called Educate to Employ initiative is not just about learning, though. The absolute key about it is that we are going to be providing concrete placements into workplace experiences and jobs within the SAP ecosystem. Together with our partners, UNESCO, the Association for the Development of Education in Africa, and so many other partners, we want to make sure that all young people today will have the skill set and the mindset to design their own future in a world where they can be drivers of success and architects of their own lives. We are proud to celebrate yet another year of joint commitment and of not leaving any young person behind and ensuring they all have everything they need to take their rightful place in the world they have already started to build. Thank you, and back to you, Claire.
Merci, merci beaucoup, Alex, for highlighting as well the importance of collaboration and also the importance of working together for a bright future for the children. And Alex, we are eagerly looking forward to the pilot of Educate. Pardon, I always have it. It's a very brand new Educate to Employ, the latest CSR global initiative that was launched and led by Alex. There will be 3 pilots, 2 in Africa and 1 in Philippines as well. Thank you so much. So now I would like to give the stage to Honorable Albert. Thank you so much for joining, Honorable Albert. You're the Secretary General of the ADEA, the Association for the Development of Education in Africa. And we were wondering if we could have your perspectives on two specific points. So the first one would be, how could we ensure that decision makers align their vision with the needs of the young generation? And the second question would be around how can public policies, to your perspective, support the transformation of education, which is the major theme here.
Thank you, Claire. It's always a pleasure for me to attend this kind of, I call them celebration, because we are basically celebrating achievements. Even though we know the road is still quite long, but it's very important to at least to celebrate the milestone. Dear Dr. Jelassi, dear Alexandra and Kathy Smith, and the whole team of SAP Africa Code Week, the ambassadors and all members of the audience. I'm just picking up from what Mrs. Van der Plag stated earlier. We are now in a world where cooperation between the private and the public sectors is no longer an option. The demand of a corporate world, as well as the skills needed to launch a new business, need to be blended with basic learning and knowledge. I would also like to add that the soft skills that are inherently taught with digital literacy will turn out to be critical assets when the student of today hit the job market. Resilience, teamwork, problem solving, and computational logic are the new subjects that should and will infuse more and more in national curricula moving forward. To prepare the workforce, in particular, the workforce of tomorrow, it takes skilled teachers that are aware of the stakes and who will encourage their students to innovate and look deep in their creative minds for the solutions to a given problem. It indeed takes parents that realize the importance of technology and the opportunities it represents for their children and the communities. It also actually calls for policymakers, decision makers, to make a national priority and create appropriate learning conditions and infrastructure for the booming youth of Africa. But before that, I think we need to get a common understanding, a joint vision, to not watch our continent being left behind as the world developed. As we engage in learning recovery after the COVID-19 crisis, ADEA invited stakeholders and partners in Mauritius for what is known as our major flagship event, the ADEA 2022 Triennale, that will be taking place from 19 to 21 of this month. The Triennale is a convening, and the purpose is really to reflect on the policies and synergies that can actually explored to build learning structure. To give you an idea, some of the critical themes that will be discussed during the Triennale include the impact of COVID-19 in Africa's educational systems, foundational learning, technical vocational skills development, and reimagining higher education. Those are really critical issues that we'll be looking at in order to build better, a resilient system. We will also be tackling other cross-cutting issues, including the data challenge in Africa's education, the issue of use of digital technology in education and training, and this is in particular where I see the Africa Code Week being of importance. We will also be discussing about the issue of equity and access. in education in the continent. Innovation and resilience are key when it comes to developing a continent as young as Africa. The youth occupy a demographic place that gives them a central role to play. Who better than those who will inherit our world to tell us how they need it to be? What synergies, what partnership can be laid off as foundations for them to build upon? What can we prepare today for them to thrive tomorrow? I happen to be part of the preparation of the Transforming Education Summit that took place in New York. And one of the points that came out on 19 September was to see how we move from this high-level commitment into actions. Of course, actions call again for a strong partnership. I believe very much in the role of private sector in improving the quality and relevance of education. And this is where I see SAP playing a key role. An investment that you are making is really commendable. Supporting the transformation of education means looking back and how it is today and learning from our errors, learning from the lack of material or financial means. And instead of seeing them as something that is missing today, let's look at them as room for improvement, innovation, space for creation, and opportunities for growth and development. Success is not about just, it cannot be built in one day. Africa Code Week is a brilliant example of how collaboration, patient effort, and relentless commitment can have a positive effect on the entire continent. When you look back at the last 7 years, more than 10 million children had a first touch at programming, which in itself is a really great achievement. Now, with a continental coding competition engaging more than 40 countries every year, a leadership program for women that spanned all the way to Asia, Africa Code Week has demonstrated the power of public-private partnership when it comes to transforming the way we teach and the way we learn on our continent. As a voice of quality and relevant education in the continent, the vision of ADEA is to unite Africa around our continental ambition to make access to quality education for all a priority. We are proud to co-host the Morocco transition meeting very soon with SAP, as this will be the opportunity for us to reiterate our commitment to make digital literacy accessible to all children, youth, and teachers. Our future has already started, and it will not develop without us because we are already at work. And regardless of gender, location, age, or ability, the youth of Africa is actually taking its place on the world stage. And we will be there to secure a safe place for them to think, learn, and strive. Let me close this intervention by congratulating all the stakeholders, particularly those who are engaged in supporting education on the continent, both public and private, and more particularly to SAP. Thank you so much for availing such a great opportunity for young Africans to be able to compete globally. Thank you, Claire. Thank you to everyone.
Dear Honorable Albert, merci infiniment for joining us, of course, sharing your insights and the vision of ADEA, and also for the work that will be addressed for the benefit of education during the ADEA Triennale in Mauritius. Today, today is World Teachers' Day, and we couldn't celebrate without inviting teachers from the field. So I'm checking with Alice if we have, yes, I think we have Saratu Bello from Nigeria, and we would normally also welcome Gabriela Ofosu Boatema from Ghana. So, ladies, first of all, welcome to our Africa launch ceremony, Africa Code Week launch ceremony. And Saratou Bello, I will start with you, if it's okay, and ask you if you would like to share your insights as a teacher in Nigeria. Over to you.
Good afternoon, all. Thanks for having me. Happy World Teachers Day. Digital literacy, basically when encouraged, gives both the teacher and the learner a very good boost, in the sense that it encourages or gives them the ability to think critically, creatively, as well as a good problem-solving, what will I say now? Knowledge of problem solving. Therefore, when they combine these strengths in communicating their findings, usually they take the day because whatever they say is quite convincing at all times. Basically, it makes them leaders in all fields, whether at school or at their career places. Secondly, it usually makes the performance of the students better, or the individual performs better academically, in the sense that they usually are able to communicate their ideas, their discoveries, their arguments in an innovative manner. This should make them stand out in the crowd. Basically, they're able to grab opportunities or take advantage of opportunities at hand by using their digital skills to display at all times. Thirdly, digital literacy is so important in the sense that it engages both the teacher and the students better at all times. With digital tools, usually the teachers are able to communicate the subject contents better. So it gives the students a good grasp of the subject matter. Because of that, the classes are usually quite interesting. At the same time, both the teacher and the students become quite fluent. Individuals that are digitally literate usually able to set the pace wherever they are. For instance, at job interviews, they are able to produce beautiful resumes, as well as display their digital talents at all times, which makes them take the lead. Furthermore, digital literate individuals are highly competitive wherever they are, or rather, I would say the world these days have been channeled to, the world basically is digitally competitive or wants to explore the benefits of digital literacy. And it is manifested especially during the COVID or during the Ebola crisis, whereby most people were left out of either school or job, or different businesses were affected. Therefore, digital literate individuals were able to do more during such seasons. Basically, in Nigeria, whereby the insurgency is quite high, it has helped in bridging the gap of the challenges that are always emerging, so that most students now can have good access to school wherever they are, because they can hook up to online training. Digital literacy tools have been made quite easy with different kinds of digital tools that are in place. Therefore, the most complex, from the simplest to complex topics have been duly explained, and students can easily book. Lastly, I would like to say that the teacher is key to impacting knowledge. Therefore, not just for the students, teachers to have to be carried along and be taught, or they should be quite digitally literate to be able to impact the knowledge on those students. Thank you.
Saratou, merci infiniment. Thank you so much for your testimony. Actually, dear Saratou, I need to say that it warms our hearts to see that actually Africa Code Week has a direct impact on the kids that you're teaching in your classroom with regards like to problem solving, and that they are also improving their grades in some subject. And the fact that it's also beneficial for the teachers is of course very, very important to us. So thank you so much for agreeing and to testifying today and to joining our launch ceremony. Merci. If I may, I will hand over to Bernard Kirk, who's the Africa Code Week co-founder and the CEO of the Camden Education Trust, major nonprofit partner of Africa Code Week. Bernard, would you like to share some insights with regards to the Women Empowerment program that you're leading?
Thank you, Claire. First of all, it's a real honor, and I'm very humbled to follow the speakers that we've had to date. Sarah too has been extremely eloquent there. I'm also a teacher. I was a teacher in the classroom for 16 years. When I started, I had a color hair that Sunil has, real dark hair. Now you see what effects teaching has on you. It's like very little of it there, and it's gray. So teaching is not that easy, and I moved on from teaching to actually become an organizer of teacher training, continuing professional development for teachers. And that's where I began to work with SAP and Claire on the Great Africa Code Week program. A couple of things, Claire, before I just mention women empowerment is, first of all, I just want to refer to some of the speakers there and the centrality of teachers in the programs. Alexandra mentioned that education is the foundation and it's the transformative, and it provides a ripple effect. And I think on top of that, Dr. Gelassi mentioned that the theme of today is transformation of education begins with the teacher. And I think that really puts the central role of the teacher in transformation highlighted. Dr. Albert mentioned about the need for skilled teachers. And also he referred to action. And this is where I now begin to work into Africa Code Week, because Africa Code Week and the Women Empowerment Program are actions. We can talk a lot in theory, we can talk a lot about what should be done, but in Africa Code Week and the Women Empowerment Program, we've taken action. And I think certainly from Sarah Chu has spoken about there shows the positive outcomes of those actions. And we took actions in relation to teachers because we recognized early in 2016 that at the time we were asked about the legacy of Africa Code Week, we would now call it sustainability. The terminology is transformed. And the question was, how do you keep this program alive and sustainable? And our answer really was, after research in the initial year, by engaging teachers, and by engaging them, by upskilling them, by providing teacher training for them, and by providing the resources, particularly the resources that they could use in the classrooms. And I'm talking about resources which are open source Scratch, that would allow them to have that connection that Sarah Chu mentioned with their students. So the key to sustainability we recognized early on was the teacher. Again, the central role of the teacher was recognized. And so our work very much is focused on involving the teachers, educators, and those who are in these positions who can make a difference for teachers in civil society. I was delighted to see Dr. Gelassi mention about the Women Empowerment Program, which you mentioned there, Claire, because I think we recognize as we worked through the research we've been undertaking in Africa Code Week, that a key group of educators are women. And we've seen in research that even as regards the key role of women in empowering young people in their families, the mother has the greatest influence of all in any education decisions in the home. And recognizing that, we began 2019, a face-to-face program called Women Empowerment Program started in Morocco. And thanks to our great partners in Morocco for their generosity of spirit and their generosity in providing the location, and I suppose a really appropriate setting where we brought 30 women from 15 countries together. We talked about transformation, and yes, we had to transform Women Empowerment Program with COVID, and we went online. And actually, that became an even bigger success because to date, we have 278 alumni from 38 countries. Yesterday, we started semester 2 of 2022 with 23 coordinators who we work with, and tomorrow they will be the group leaders when we have a further 75. So we will be up to 350 participants. We call them alumni because they work together and have created a great resource. Over the next 6 weeks, we'll work with them, and we work in both French and English with in-time interpretation. And this has created huge cross-border bonds between women from many different countries, cultures, languages, and communities. And our focus is on girls in education. And again, going back to what was mentioned earlier by Dr. Jelassi, the focus on STEM, but we also bring in the arts in here. So it's a STEAM approach that we have, the creative arts as well as STEM. Doing a lot of research on it, and we see that communities are so central to what happens in education. And I think rounding that back to finish off, Africa Code Week has very much been based on linking with people in the communities who take action. So taking that word from earlier, from Honorable Albert, it's the taking of action by the people who we work with in the communities, by taking action, as we mentioned by Dr. Jelassi in the SDG 17, with partners that has created what we just heard from Sarah too in her classroom. And that's why I think it's a great tribute to everyone who's here, all of our ambassadors, all of the SAP team, all of the people who made the decisions over the years, that we're still here in a very sustainable program, which is having a long-term legacy. And I'll stay in Irish, Gramila Mahagwif, which means thanks to all of you.
Merci, Bernard, for your inspiring words, and congratulations on having onboarded 278 alumni, female teachers for the Women Empowerment Program that you're very successfully and brilliantly leading, and from all over Africa. Congratulations. So for the closing remarks, I will hand over to my esteemed colleague, Sunil Guinness. Sunil is the head of CSR for SAP Africa and the head of government affairs. Sunil, my dear, over to you.
Thank you very much, Claire. What an honor to listen to our speakers, Dr. Jelassi, Honorable Albert, Bernard Kirk, co-founder with Claire, and listening to Alex, talk about the context that we're creating with Educate to Employ. I think it's important for us to realize this is the 7th year. Now, most of you here seem like you are older, sort of than the 21-year age group. And you know this number 7 features biblically, it features historically, it features in relationships. But we shouldn't look at that number from a perspective of any negativity. We need to look at that number as a show of strength. When this program was put together, Claire and Bernard, you recall, and Alex at the time, Madams Bello in Nigeria, the thinking behind it was that SAP would play a catalyst role together with partners, with teachers, with the children, with the communities. But most importantly, as part of the journey, was the passing of the baton, so to speak, to governments. And Dr. Jelassi raised a very important point about the creation of policy frameworks to enable innovation and to enable growth, especially in African communities. And I think this year, let alone the years that have preceded it, we've seen in Kenya during August, where the then president, you know, that has shifted now, announced on the 7th or the 8th of August that Kenya would formally introduce coding into the school curriculum. And we know that Kenya, Claire, Alex, Bernard, and others, Dr. Albe, that Kenya is quite a robust area in terms of science, technology, innovation. And we've seen in other countries as well, from time to time, presidents coming up and talking about this in South Africa, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Ghana, in Nigeria, we're seeing that more and more. So in a way, and a sense, this number 7 has got us to the point where we're seeing the passing of that baton. And there was mention made of the workshop that will happen in Morocco. And I think the timing, Alexander, and Adi, of course, it couldn't have been a better timing, considering the mood that's on the African continent. And COVID has accelerated in so many ways the need for tech-savvy young people to pick up the cudgels and move the continent forward. And, you know, at the beginning, we were shy to say this was the largest digital literacy program on the continent. I remember, Claire, when we kicked off and we were at the World Economic Forum 7 years ago and in Cape Town, and we almost said it, you know, hush us, this is going to be the largest digital literacy program. But today we know that the sheer numbers, the partners, the teachers that have been involved, the legacy that has been left behind by embedding that, because teachers tend to remain. Like Bernard, I also started my career off as a teacher, and they always remain teachers, right, in their lives. So we've left that legacy, and it's all, you know, supportive of the communities that have been involved. And we could never do this. Andre Albert mentioned that the power of partnership is the critical thing. And I guess there's no better example across the globe in the history of programs which are of pedagogic nature and in nature to enable technology better than the Africa Code Week. And some people will say we are talking to the converted, but I hear this all the time. And with those few words, I would like to thank everyone, including the speakers who have made time. You all have very busy schedules, who have made time and who have prepared diligently. I had to listen and I made copious notes, which I want to touch base with my colleagues when we get to Morocco about the various things that have been said. And thank you once again, Claire, for your leadership, working very closely with Adi and Alice for putting in the tremendous work in setting up. I almost feel like I'm with you right there. It doesn't feel virtual to me. It feels like I'm right next to you. There's a lot of work that has gone on in the background to get us to this point and this particular event. And if there's anybody I may have left out who is on the African continent, please forgive me. But at some point we will meet you and we'll see each other again. And with those words, Claire, I'd like to say thank you to everyone.
Merci infiniment, Sunil, for your closing remarks. Alex, if you could unmute your mic and officially launch Africa Code Week 2022 edition, we'd be absolutely pleased.
Absolutely. Well, I'm very happy, very proud, and excited to be able to launch Africa Code Week 2022. Here's to another fantastic few months ahead. And thank you so much, everybody, for your support and your hard work on this.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, everyone. And with this, we're going to
Thank you so much.
Our meeting.
Thank
Merci.
you. Thank you all the wonderful work. Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
It was wonderful
Thank you.
seeing you.
Thank you. Good to see you. Yeah. Thank you.
Merci,
Bye.
Merci.
Bye. Merci.
Au
Au
revoir.
revoir.
Thank you.
Au revoir.